Right, good afternoon. I'm here with Chris, and we are in a spectacular spot, the Bluebell Inn on the Malvern Hills. I think that's those
right. Yep.
hill type things over there. So, you're a subscriber to Substack.
I am.
God help you. How are you feeling about Spurs at the moment?
I can't get too excited yet. That makes sense. I want to be excited. I wanted to be excited when we won the Europa League, but I couldn't be. I was more excited when I found out Ange was leaving.
Yeah, but that's led us into a very choppy space, to use that horrible business speak, and we'll come back to the interview with Daniel and his new pal shortly. But the whole Ange Postecoglou thing has brought out of the woodwork. And normally foreign fans are great. They're just very happy. I remember being a foreign fan. I've been a foreign fan officially twice.
You're talking about the Aussies.
But the Aussies have been different. I'm experiencing levels of abuse that I first got when I first used the internet. Like, have you got your mum's trainers on? And who sold you those glasses? And was he working in a joke shop? What were your thoughts on Ange's tenure?
Couldn't wait for it to be over. I'm glad. I mean, the last time we spoke, I think even then I wasn't very positive. I think it was kind of all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, he's gone, but Daniel's still there for the time being. Once he's gone, I will be free of the weight of history.
And did you say to me you've yet to watch the interview with him and his new CEO?
I've seen bits of it. I couldn't stomach watching the whole thing.
I sat through the entire 7 minutes of it last night, and I mean, this is a good tip actually. If you ever have a YouTube channel and you don't want to get traffic, include the phrase "gangbang" in the video title. I'm not joking, because the thing I put up was if LinkedIn held a gangbang. And it was when I left the house this morning, it had been watched by 500 people. I thought they'd be queuing around the block, but clearly the algorithm took me by the throat.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you ever want to, stifle your traffic, make sure the old GB goes in. So we now have Thomas Frank. What are your immediate thoughts on him? Because I mean, to me, I don't really have any. I can clearly see where he's come from.
Yeah,
but it's like that usual thing. But will it work at bloody Spurs?
Well, the only thing that would prevent it working would be the chairman. I think that's. I mean, you look at Brentford, and they've consistently bought in cheap, for lack of a better word, talent, but good talent, and then they've sold them on for a lot. According to my maths on my little research I was doing later, pretty much an 80% markup on average across the players that they bought and sold.
No wonder Daniel fell in love with him.
Well, that was my first thought. That means Daniel needs to stay out of it.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, I've got do you have a look at these?
Yeah, sure.
So you got, this is kind of the top four obviously haven't been sold yet, but that's what their transfer market value is. Right, so they were bought. So Pot was bought for 16. His value is 29.
So Lewis Potter has gone for 45%.
Yeah, profit. That would be the profit that he's making on. Yeah, but obviously all these ones: Raya, Tony, Watkins, Ben Rama, Malpay. They've all given that much profit.
So, just looking at this on your phone, and also worrying about the stinging of my sunburn or my allergy or the napalm or whatever I was involved in earlier. You're looking at somewhere between, worst case scenario, 45% is at the top of the page there.
Yeah.
But basically, this is all like 80 to 100%.
Yeah.
Or 80 to 90%.
Yeah. So Benrahma bought for 2 million, sold for 23. Watkins bought for 6, sold for 30. Tony bought for 5, sold for 40. Raya bought for 3, sold for 32.
This is very interesting. And normally when I say that, I then follow up hotly on the heels, so it better be. But this is perhaps the missing piece of Daniel's jigsaw puzzle that you've identified. Forget the sort of Football London gold by beer. Well, if we got to play, so this is where it's at.
But then, as an example, if we were to apply that 80%, that's what we would have to be selling the players that he's bought for the insane amount of money that he's paid for them.
So that's interesting. So if we're averaging just under 80%, which you've drawn there, which because I'm not going to argue with the maths because I can't even count anything. But so what you're suggesting here that Tal, and I have to say there's been a fair amount of in the fan base,
who was spunked 35 million on.
We're now going to need to regain the spunk of 63 million.
That's if he wants to maintain what he thinks.
Precisely. Precisely. So if the business model comes true with the same name but under a different coloured shirt, for want of a worse way of expressing it, Danso for 45 million is looking kind of on target for me.
Yep.
I don't think there's any question marks over that.
And he's homegrown.
Homegrown. At these prices, we can't afford to deliver. But yeah, they managed to make a loss on Højbjerg, which is extraordinary.
Yeah,
sold for 13.
I don't understand why we still let him go back to Marseille, because he came back end of his loan and then we've sold him.
I think he actually. I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, I had no inside gossip or whatever, but just my intuition said that this guy wasn't a mug, and may well have said, "You're playing at running a football club," because he was the guy that Jose Mourinho said, "Oh yeah, who will end up in management? He's a complete nuisance. He just keeps on asking questions." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think he's the odd egg. Is this working?
Oh, don't say that.
No, it's not working. It's not. It did it go to resume? It's all right. We can edit this. Okay. Don't worry. Yeah, it was 6 minutes, so it has been recording. Okay. Right, okay. Back to the world of dreams.
Højbjerg, yeah. 29 years old, so he's still got plenty of time left. And I just thought, if ever there was, you look at the way Brentford play, he's a no-brainer to start him as a covering defensive midfielder in front of a back four.
He just struck me as one of those sort of sober realities of football, whereby you weren't hoping to develop him into anything because he was already doing good. He was at a level whereby he was just, and it was just telling that he was being brought on to salvage things.
Yeah, well, that and he didn't fit into Angie's system at all because he was too slow.
Yeah, Angie's system. I'm just trying to let that permeate into my brain. Yeah.
What I would get the under 12 girls to do at football on a Saturday morning, just go, get up there. That's it. That's the only bit of coaching I can offer.
But it just reminded me, and I think I've shoehorned this into a thing with the Three Amigos. Was the business where this guy? It was a Japanese restaurant, and he said his father worked there, and he said, "Oh yeah, he was at Pearl Harbor." And he says, "Pearl Harbor? How does that work? Didn't they all talk?" Yeah. And he goes, "No, he just clipped off the side of a boat and went into the water." And completely undermined any confidence in him that he was the real deal. So we've got Frank, and your numbers there are hugely impressive. And I'll screenshot them and stick them into the what's its name. But how do you think he's going to get along? Because I've been thinking about this, and don't get me wrong, I am pro Frank because for two reasons. One is he's not Ange. So we don't have this mysterious, let's get behind our leader, fellas, which we've had from Australia, which I hate to say. I don't like singling out and marginalising an audience, but by God, they've been tough. But does he have the nuts and bolts he requires? Like, I'm thinking of the goalkeeper, for example.
Yeah, I mean, Brentford, they play quite a lot of long balls from the keeper. I think that the Brentford keeper was number one in last season for long passes.
Right.
Vicario not playing short balls out from the back will be a relief. Whether he's any better at pinging them.
Well, do you know, he couldn't. Again, same thing with Ange. He couldn't be any worse because.
But then, does he go with Kinski instead? Why not?
Well, I have to tell you, I would dump Vicario quicker than something that I can't mention on this show. But no, I don't get any.
Particularly when we need the space, because have you seen the details about the squad allocation for Premier League and for Europe? how
Go
it
on,
works.
go on.
So we've got, I nicked it off of someone else's site. So we have, for the Premier League, that's the non-homegrown players, right? And you're allowed 17. At the moment, I think we've got 13 or 14. Right?
Okay.
Homegrown players, got those, okay?
Right.
And that's what your under 21s. But then for UEFA, they have a different.
These are, I think
setup.
they call them the different pillars,
they're club trained, so they have to be in training with the club for the last 2 to 3 seasons. We only have one, and that is Austin. So now, if we have to have him for Europe, why not jettison one of the keepers?
Yeah, I mean, I think Austin, and
it gives us a place here where we have no space in Europe with all of these players.
Right.
So bring anyone in. So we have to get rid of people, and we're only going to bring them in and they're coming in because they want to play in Europe. Yeah. So we're going to have to sell some of these.
I've never spoken to anybody in all my years of doing these things who's actually done some meaningful research. And quite frankly, I'm completely stuffed. So you make an excellent point, because Brennan Austin has been, in the brief bits we've seen of him,
I think it's brilliant.
Exactly, superb.
Confident.
I mean, I worry about a man's temperament who is content to just hang about for a while, you know. And I've made the remark before, maybe a wife or a girlfriend or whatever needs to say, tell him you should do it. Tell him, you know, because you know those voices within inside the house, they can help you grow as a human or break you. So that's interesting. And also, I would humbly submit that we're going to have really tough times ahead in the Champions League.
Oh, we're going to get absolutely slaughtered. And, well, if we play the way that we have done for the last 12 months.
Do you think yeah, exactly. Do you think, because this is the sort of, you know, $60 billion question or whatever it is, do you think the tactical changes from Thomas Frank will be enough, given the fact, because there is no money. You know, there is no money.
There isn't. And as long as Levy, if he stays out of the splurging whatever money we do have on players, the last 3 seasons, Brentford have had between the 3rd and the 5th, including the very least, amount of money on wages.
Right.
So he's used to playing with players that don't ask for much. Players who have been bought in on the cheap. He turns them into gold, seemingly.
As your math shows us there, that his average margin is in the region of 80%, which is, like I say, this is the stuff that Daniel Levy uses as Viagra.
But the way he differs to Ange is, he doesn't have, you can't pin him down on a specific system that he plays, because he plays whatever players he gets given, he plays them in the positions that they are best at.
I used to work, and I'll keep this very brief, but I used to work at a shopping centre. One of the best guys, and this was in Stillorgan in Dublin, and one of the best guys I used to talk to about football was a security guard. And my trips to the storeroom, which was the other side of the shopping centre, invariably stopped and talking to him. And he used to say, it's not a complicated game. He was a Manchester United fan. He said, it's not a complicated game. He said, you take your best players and you play them to their best strengths. Yeah. And this is something that I think Spurs fans have picked up on. I've seen on forums from our lot saying that it was Thomas Frank who worked out the Ange ball, inverted comma, myth, and basically played with a bit of a low block and adapted accordingly.
Yeah. Well, he did that to Southampton as well. So if the stats were, they were playing deep in all the usual, against Liverpool, against City and stuff, because they play really well on the break. But the only anomaly in that list of teams that they play so deep against was Southampton. You're like, why? It's like, well, because Southampton, as bad as they were, loved playing aggressive football, keeping the ball, wanting to get forward as much as possible. And then they just, we'll wait till we win the ball back and then ping it forward and score.
And Southampton were the team that went down that beat us.
Because we got outdone.
Welcome to Ange's Celtic on tour world. Which, it's funny because it's true, to quote Homer Simpson. So looking at these figures, we've got plenty of non-homegrown, which is normally the case for everybody.
Yeah.
But
we've got space in the Premier League for another 3 or 4, I think it is.
Right.
Sarr doesn't count as homegrown,
no.
we know. But out of Son, probably, I would assume that he would be the elephant in the room, needs to leave.
I think he needs to leave on
gonna,
more pressing matters than the fact that he comes from the land.
I mean, Romero already gone. Richarlison hopefully gets a nice ticket to Saudi Arabia.
The thing is, we keep saying that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not beating you up, but it's more the journalism. It just strikes me as very lazy because even Ange's been linked with Saudi in the last week.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I mean, I'd love the idea of a burglar breaking into your house like a sort of Father Christmas and leaving stuff you wanted, taking your shit old telly and leaving you with this, like, Sky Glass Plus thing mounted on the wall, and they didn't even wake you up with the drilling. That would be great. But I'm just struggling with the reality of it. That, I mean, because I know the Saudi thing is flawed and it's full of faults, and they're buying players.
But they're willing to pay lots of money for mediocre players. I think that's the thing.
That's
so
the cachet
fits
they
Richarlison to a,
doesn't it? Just
a T, and Levy, because he's like, I can still make loads of money back on him.
And his newborn baby with his wife, who looks remarkably young. I think that's about as close as I'll keep things there. But
do you want to switch? Just so you're not getting too burnt.
Oh no, I'm fine.
Right,
yeah. Don't worry, and I'll edit this all out when I get in. No, that's fine. No, I'll tell you what, I think this is actually an allergy to a cat.
Right.
I could be wrong. So, what are your thoughts? Because I'm looking at the midfield thing. This is the thing that is. Do you have any thoughts on the tactical switches that Thomas Frank can do in order to make us more competitive, more aggressive in our midfield? Because to me, that's I don't have the answer, by the way. It's not a trick question. But even if we can keep everybody fit, which I think we've got a much enhanced, better chance of doing without
with a proper coach,
somebody who knows what they're
proper
doing,
fitness coach,
versus a competition winner. G'day, mate. Because Johnson, this sort of triangle is like a Bermuda triangle.
I don't like it.
Of Johnson, Sarr, and Bentancur. Bentancur, because to me, none of them operated in a particularly convincing. And Basuma, I think, is just out to lunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we don't have any strength in that midfield that I can perceive.
And that's that I get really frustrated with. That you look at all the other teams that have done well, even though people didn't think they would last season, and they've all got strong players, and we don't seem to have any strong players.
No.
Since Kane is pretty good at holding people up, and you look at him. I watched a little bit of one of the, what was it, when they beat Auckland 10-0 the other day.
Yeah.
But
those Aucklanders can be very, very feisty.
But he still looks big and strong. Yeah. And you look at our front line, and you just
don't see it.
No, not at all. And in the midfield, no, not at all. I mean, Sarr, he's big, but he's straight up and down.
Well, I don't know. He has those qualities. I don't think he's straight up and down. I mean, I've watched a terrible film. I can't remember what it was, but people probably recognise it. And it was a film set in some part of the world where they were fighting these black guys, and they referred to them as skinnies, which is terribly, but they were all skinny. They all had the same frame. And I see Sarr, and I just fear. I don't think he's physically inept. But he doesn't have that kind of, maybe I'm a massive racist, or maybe I'm just seeing things as they are. that bulk, that weight, that assertiveness, that kind of maybe that English God-given sort of I deserve to be here sort of thing. That authority, that's maybe the better word. He doesn't seem to me to have that immediate sort of sense of authority and purpose about him. Madison comes and goes, which really, really concerns me.
And then today we get linked with Grealish, who's just like Madison on steroids, and you think, really?
No, it's Madison with a sick note from San Miguel. That's the reality. I mean, I think being linked with Grealish is at best unkind and lazy as hell, because I'm not sure what he offers to anyone. I'm really not sure what he offers to anybody. I think that ship has sailed, to put it mildly. Are there any I mean, the players I'm excited about seeing Frank get his hands on are Bergvall and Gray.
Yeah.
What do you think of those two?
I love them. They are the future for us. They are the now and the future.
Yeah.
Bergvall's clearly got stuff about him. He's not afraid to put his foot in.
Absolutely not.
And Gray, once he's played in the right position, will.
What are you saying? What are you suggesting?
We bought a midfielder and played him in defence for a year. Yeah. And then went, actually, no, we'll play you in your right position, but with loads of rubbish players around you against some of the stronger teams in the world. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of, I hate phrases like healing and holistic paths and all the rest of it, but I think there's a lot of making up to do within that squad, because Ange, whether you liked him or not, and I think this is one of the things that some of these very aggressive Australians haven't quite worked out, is that none of us set out to dislike anybody.
No.
It was just a combination of frustration. And yes, we know that Levy keeps the purse strings tight and the reins tight on whoever he employs. But the idea that you play players out of position, I mean, Jed Spence, what do you think of him, of what you've seen of him?
I think he's brilliant. Again, confident, brilliant on the ball, dribbling past people, strong. See, I mean, do we play him at the left or the right?
Play him where he's played well historically would be my rather outrageous suggestion.
That is the right, isn't it? Right,
yeah.
Walton was the right back.
Yeah.
And that, for me, that would be perfect, because I think we should be playing Porro on the right front. If we're looking for someone that can give us quality crosses, not so much the shooting, like 1 in 100.
He's almost in the Tommy Huddleston category of incoming.
But I think for to have someone like him being free to not defend because he's got Spence behind him and just stick him up there on the right, he's got that what Mbeumo does for Brentford, that he can just be that player that's there ready to go.
That makes
cross the ball for someone coming on the left that isn't Son, because he'd be halfway back up the pitch, trying to get on the end of it.
And what about Brennan Johnson? What are your thoughts on him? I mean,
he can't be. I think you said the other day he can't be that bad. He scored 20 odd goals this season.
Yeah,
he's clearly got something about him. He hasn't had any coaching that we can tell.
No,
in the last year.
Listen,
so
I mean, we can't pander. We can't pander to the end of the audience that are deaf, dumb, and blind. To quote the Who. I mean, the reality is that we haven't seen anybody improve during.
No, we've just seen them gradually get knackered.
Yes, which brings us neatly on to Dejan Kulusevski.
See, I love him,
but
he's knackered.
But do you agree, beyond his knackeredness and his state of health repair? Do you think if we were playing Porro in a more forward role, which I totally agree with, by the way, because that was where he was quite exciting in his previous incarnation, if we brought Kulu a bit more central,
well, he does
frequently shown a bit more magic.
He does a lot better than
I bet you think I was going right, but I'm not. Yeah. I'm cutting in on my left.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Play him in the middle. I mean, he's probably too slow to stick him on the other wing. Maybe that's why did Thomas Frank say yes to Tell, because he can see he's happy to stay out there on the left.
Well, I hope you've brought your lawyers with you, because I'm not sure if hand on heart, if Tell was rubber stamped by Frank. I think Thomas may have said, "Oh, Tell, you say, wonderful, I say." I think that may be more the way that one went, opposed to. I've been sat in Brentford in the GTEC Stadium watching clips, a highlight reel of Matthias Tell on my phone. Which of course I've lost now, because
and if that is the case, then clearly there was just some underhand dealings with regards to the loan that we had, where it was actually an obligation to buy.
Are you suggesting some polluted idea that the Harry Kane fee has been pre-amortised by the inclusion of this no mark from
absolutely not? Yeah, he says nodding his
absolutely
head.
not. I can neither confirm or deny, despite what I'm doing with my head at the moment. No, I mean, I think we almost kind of have to leave that alone and just do the old eye rolling thing, because the idea that anybody's going to look at Matthias Tell, because the idea, call me old-fashioned, but isn't this like you take a car for a test drive? It doesn't work very well.
If you don't love it, don't buy it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you take it down the road and you're thinking to yourself, why the hell am I inside this? This isn't working for either of us. The car hates me. I don't like it. I mean, he wasn't a disaster. He wasn't, I wouldn't say he was sort of Timo Werner end of the car market, but I just felt, for example, him being given that penalty, that kind of, I was thinking, oh really? Let's just have a look at the director's box and have a look at the technical area here. Because I want
to the ear.
And I just want to see the straight faces. I want to see you look convincing. So who do you think? Because
Odebear as well, isn't there, on the left?
Are you convinced by him?
No,
you're allowed to say yes.
We haven't seen enough of him. But again, if he is someone that has got talent, and a lot of these guys are still very young. So,
which is a positive because we could
if we've got Thomas Frank, if he is going to, I mean, we could be looking back at the end of the season going, wow, look at what he's done.
No, absolutely right. I mean, as you've proven with your data, damn you, but as you've proven, this guy has form, and maybe some of the, for want of a nicer word, antisexuals out there might want to hold their nose, pinch their nose because the smell isn't pleasant to them, and consider whether this is his expertise that he brings to the market. Ange had an expertise and still does, and at a certain level with certain constraints, he can deliver silverware, which is not to be laughed at, but for where we are, or supposedly want to be, in the Premier League, it wasn't good enough, because you can't just turn around and say, sure, well, there was bound to be consequences.
Yeah.
Yes, but my wife has lost a leg. Yeah, but you're still dating a former Miss World. Yeah, but she arrived with 2 legs. She's only got 1.
Yeah.
And that's what he effectively did. So yeah, this business of Frank being able to actually do that magic fairy dust and sprinkle on, this thing keeps on looking like it's dying. I get very emotional when I say it. But yeah, it's looking like it might be a reality. It might be a destination for us.
Yeah.
So we don't have any money. And that was another conversation which was very tough to have with, I have to say, Australians and other simple-minded people, which not all Australians are simple-minded, but the ones I spoke to were particularly simple-minded. And so we had a situation whereby we got 41 million quid for the Europa League, which is good, ka-ching. I'm still distracted by the margins that Frank can get, to be honest. And my inner Daniel Levy is it's like the pill has kicked in. But we have to pay compensation to Ange, we have to pay compensation to Brentford. And by the time you've done that, I know the expenses.
And then spent money on
but once
Hotel.
Please don't mention that name again. Not so soon. but the idea that once we've bought Tel, we've done the deal on Kane's deal. We're not left with very much, and this is before Daniel Levy gets in. And I hate to say this, but as somebody who's been in business, nobody likes to talk about deductions. Nobody ever mentions the overheads.
Yeah.
And whilst it's fine for Daniel to sit there and say, oh, this is why they're doing the Beyonce and all the rest of it. Yeah, it's fabulous. But that isn't just, well, that'll be another 10 million, because there are deductions.
Yeah.
There's the cost of the staff, there's the margin that the promoter gets, and blah, 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 blah. So it all goes into the funnel, which is wonderful, because it's better than nothing going into the funnel.
Yeah.
But our Champions League money, clearly, we're adults, so I don't need to tell you, but we don't get any of that until we actually earn it. They don't give you it up front.
Yeah.
So based on the ability, based on the numbers that we don't have much in the way of numbers, how do you perceive we might do in this transfer window? Do you have any thoughts or hopes or?
How much would we get for Romero?
Very good question. I think Daniel Levy would probably get ballpark 65 million.
Payable over 10 years, isn't it?
Well, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
I used to mock that. I'll be honest with you. I used to mock that. But when you're throwing stuff into a spreadsheet, which I
out.
can't use, it just goes ching, 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 ching. And as long as you keep the balance straight, this is why, for example, Richarlison, total fucking disaster. But on the spreadsheet, he's not expensive because you're paying for this donkey over 6 years, 7 years or whatever. So once you shred it all down, he's 10 million quid a season or whatever, you know. And it doesn't hurt so much. And then if you get money in for a player over 6 seasons or 7 seasons, again, you know, if Romero could be, which I think is going to be a really tough conversation, try and get him out the door, but because he's just so keen to go to Atletico, it hurts. But yeah, that would be good. But then we'd lose money on Richarlison. So I just don't know. But I mean, when it comes to, because what fans want to hear, and it isn't, well, certainly isn't that they want to bring in Jack Grealish at this stage. But what do you think in terms of like what fresh blood? I mean, because I mean, I think we need a new goalkeeper, but I think we've got goalkeepers on the roster that can step in and solve that.
Yeah.
And the defence, we need to focus on the fact that players like Davis are still around. Yeah, rolling of the eyes.
An extra season, great.
But yeah, wonderful. I mean,
to Wrexham.
Just get to Wrexham, find fortune and fame in Wrexham. But is there anybody that you've been thinking of? I mean, like Bueno from Brentford, or those sort of guys.
He looks nailed on to go to United now, doesn't he? Pretty much. I would go back. The last time we spoke, I said Mateta, and I would still say, if you're looking at a striker,
right.
That's big, strong, quick, knows how to score goals. You know? If he could tell Eze to come with him,
that is a player. That is a player that I have to say I find slightly underwhelming because I'm naturally miserable. But Eze, I think, would just solve a lot of things for us, a lot of things, and at 65 mil, that isn't negotiable because we can see what Palace have been doing.
Yeah.
I think this thing keeps on stopping.
It's still going. Yeah, it's still going.
Bastard. But yeah, it just strikes me that we should just go out and buy him. That would be my one player. I mean, I asked you the question, you give me some answers, but I'm just saying, I think Eze would give us a fair amount of reliability.
Well, the thing is, he's homegrown. Great.
Ching,
big
ching.
tick. And who would we then? We're looking at him playing in the number 10 role.
Yeah, I mean, I would see him as a straight swap for Sonny.
Right.
To be blunt,
because keep him on that side.
But I'd keep him on that side, and he's another player like Spence who's happy to move around when they actually get the ball.
Yeah.
And the same with Kulusevski. They have that ability, but I think it's been marginalised by just saying, well, you're playing on the right, you're playing on the. And I don't think he particularly fostered the idea of taking suggestions from the audience.
No. Well, it's always standing on his own.
I think it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see a bit more fluidity, and perhaps Thomas Frank could bring that to us. I don't know.
Yeah. And I would say, you've said we don't have any money, right? So we can't really buy anyone. We definitely need to sell 3 or 4 players purely from a UEFA, what's the word, allocation on squad numbers, because we're going to also have to bring in kids from the youth team to fill in the club trained allocation. So talk another 3 of those.
Because this is a thorny subject. So talk to me about the kids with a Z, by the way.
Right.
And if I get really corny, it'll be kids with a Z.
I think that they haven't been given enough chance.
I think I've been historically very unreceptive to the whole kids argument because, and I have to be honest, we had people like Windy Coys and these other nutcases who were more interested in the fact that there were young boys in shorts darting around than there was like some actual talent. But is it Ajay?
Ajay, yeah.
Ajay and Mikey Moore.
Yep.
I have to say, even on the brief cameos that we've seen from both of them, I'm like, more please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and put them in the matchday squad, and give them
meaningful
half an hour,
minutes,
20 minutes, yeah,
meaningful
in
minutes.
a game. And if they do really well, give them a start.
So this conversation, with the exception of a few notable sort of general idiocies, which nobody's ever going to be able to fix, keeps on coming back to Thomas Frank.
Yeah.
Because these are areas that he has a proven track record.
Yeah, and he will get the best out of them. He'll play them where they want to play. So Mikey Moore won't be playing in the wrong position, just to fit Son in the team.
Honestly, it's so unlike me. Really, it's so unlike me that I don't have any connection with Mikey Moore at all. He is literally a bloke on the telly.
Yep.
Right. I think I fell out of this business of going, ooh, seeing like a woman or whatever on the telly when I was a kid. And in grown-up life, I go, yeah, she's very attractive, but I'm never going to meet her, so I'm not going to get a moment's thought. And certainly when it comes to bloody footballers, and I'm looking at a man or a fully grown teen, and I go, oh, Mikey Moore. But I look at him and I think, what the hell? Why aren't we getting some of this?
Yeah, absolutely. And he does it for England.
And I like it. I like the way he does that thing with his socks. You know, the socks around his ankles. Which is for my, this is like Glenn Hoddle, Garth Crooks.
Yeah,
I find that very arousing. If Windy Coys could only look further up beyond the knees, or further down beneath the knees, he'd find where the magic was. But yeah, I just think he looks the absolute business. But that Ajay guy, I mean, his goal was great.
Yeah, and then we never see him again. So what did he say? Like.
Yeah, well, you've got to ask it. You've got to ask it because I know you have to keep these kids on a short leash because I had a guy who was great ITK. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. But there was a whole thing under Poch of protocols.
Right.
So if you were in the under 21s, under 16s, or whatever it was, that then reflected how you wore your socks.
Yeah.
Which doors you used. It was very regimented, which I think is useful. I think young men need a bit of.
I know Liverpool. Is it Alex Inglethorpe, isn't it?
Yeah.
Liverpool. They do that with they can't drive a car over a certain value.
Precisely.
That kind of thing,
and who was that nutcase that we had at Spurs, and he ended up going to, I think it was Hull, along with Tommy Huddleston. His name escapes me, and I'll mention it on the thing afterwards. But his family were a bit way. Right. But he apparently rolled up in a Bentley super duper turbocharged, Hot Wheels edition of some monster of a car, and was basically told, and this was by Poch, take it home, take it home and get an Uber in, because we all know how much
you're
we
at your
earn.
place of work.
Yeah,
you don't need to.
Which I think is a positive thing. I think it's a positive thing, but it makes you wonder what has gone on behind the scenes, because we've got players who have proved themselves with given a marginal of not meaningless but modest minutes they've been given.
Yeah.
And then just thrown into the neglect box.
Yeah.
So maybe there we go. I'm coming around to this, aren't I? Eventually, we're coming around to the fact that maybe Thomas Frank holds a lot of the answers, and maybe the squad beyond the precious starting 11, with no disrespect to anybody, maybe that holds the answers.
Yeah, I mean, the big question is, do we actually need to buy anyone when you look at our squad? If they're all playing to their potential.
Sorry, where's Chris gone? Sorry, Daniel, did you see Chris? He was here a minute ago.
I'm just...
You're positing the idea.
Well...
but no, it makes sense on what I'm just saying.
I'm just draining all of the Ange out of me. Just feeling positive about the future.
It is what it is, mate.
But when you look at how do we fit all these players in? What is our first team? There you go. So start with that. When you think our back four, I assume Danso would start ahead of Dragusin.
I would like to think so, but
and then you've got obviously Mickey. And then, as we already said, let's say what's the name on the left? A doggy and on the Spence on the right, and then midfield, not sure. from a defensive midfielder point of view, because maybe that's what we need.
Yeah.
Then potentially that, unless Gray would play ahead of the DM, wouldn't he?
I think he
He'd
would.
be the
I think he's more of a creative, not creative, more of a, from the paucity of clips I've seen, more of a sort of creative, functional sort of like supporting role. I don't think he's a big shebang showbiz midfielder.
But we don't need that if we've got, attacking midfielder would then be, you've got Maddison. Yeah.
Maddison doesn't quite do it for me as an attacking midfielder. Would
we sell him potentially, but not yet?
I tell you who did get my hopes up at one point, and he's been dogged by both injury and by disciplinary issues, was Bentancur. Because do you remember him coming up and getting the odd goal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's that gone?
Well, it's, I suppose like the Celso, every time he got injured, he'd take a year and a half to come back.
Yeah.
And then just not, I've no problems with him. He's a good, solid player, and he again loves to put his foot in.
Yeah, doesn't he just?
Does the old Romero and gets a bit carried away whenever there's a bit of argy-bargy.
Loves to put his forehead
in. Into the floor even.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we keep, he stays for another year just as that more experienced player in there. And so stick Bentancur in that role. And then, you've got, no Maddison, got Bergvall as well.
Bergvall's magic. For me, I know magic is a very ridiculous word, but there's something about that kid. He does have a little bit of immaturity to him, and by that I don't mean he's spraying mofo on the wall, But I think, and this brings me back again, just in case anybody thought I was going to let him off lightly, Vicario.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how the bon homme and the esprit de corps works with some no-mark Italians screaming at them.
Yeah.
Has that sat well with you?
I've hated it.
Right.
Like, he makes so many mistakes, and then he starts berating everyone in front of him.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you do your job well. Concentrate on what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're not the captain either, so keep your trap shut.
Lead by example. I mean, that's not an unreasonable request, is it? But there's still this whole, I get it. Culturally, I've travelled around. I haven't lived in the same village for the last 25 years. But this whole mamma mia, because somebody hasn't put enough basil on the spaghetti, I just find it for me, it wore very thin very quickly.
Yeah. But who's the goalkeeper we had at Oregon? Was he one of ours as well?
Yeah, and I'm ashamed to say I can't remember his bloody name.
Because you had,
we should have
Donnelly was the other one, wasn't it?
We should have Chris B here because he knows all this sort of stuff. But unfortunately, this is a public house, and I think this is quite nice, and I'd like them to keep their license. And he lacks charm after his 9th pint.
Right. Okay.
I mean, he's got lots of other stuff going for him. He does
is that why you can only do the Three Amigos in the morning?
Yeah. Well, but it's bail conditions, and he's got one of those new tags they're just trialling in the Bedfordshire region. So, Champions League realistic expectations?
None.
Okay, that was a conversation. No, I agree.
Let's use the 13th of August, PSG.
Yeah,
let's use that as a barometer.
Yeah,
that will give us all an idea of where we stand with Frank, how much time he's been had to work with.
Yeah. And it's just before. I think I'm right. It's only a few days before the season kicks off.
Yeah,
really.
So we should be in a good place.
Well, everybody should be revved up, looking to make an impact. And I've seen places online. I'm not going to mention Australians again, where it's just it's effectively a friendly. It's not. It's not a friendly. Mm. This is winning the Super Cup is
another trophy.
It's another bit of silverware, and I don't think anybody. I think Frank would clearly like to pick that up. God knows what reaction that would get in New South Wales, mate. But I mean, I think that would be tremendous. But they have spanked people recently.
Yeah.
And this for them, that was the problem that Poch had with PSG. They hadn't ever done anything really in Europe. And for them, and I hate to use the phrase again, copper, but they are the European champions.
Yeah. But look at how they've done it as well.
Yeah.
with younger players. No big show-offs.
What are you talking about? Are you suggesting that there could be good sell-on margins?
I'm just saying.
You're just throwing it into the conversation.
If Mr. Frank turns out to be as good as is it Luis Enrique that's at PSG?
Yeah.
You know, as much tactical nous as he does, then we could do all right. You know, you look at the size of our squad. We've got too many players. We're going to lose some of them. Hopefully, they'll be the no good ones that are just bad around the dressing room.
Yeah,
you know.
I agree. I agree.
And then we'll see what happens. And then, yes, I do feel positive about this year. Even worst case scenario, we're not going to do as well as we did this year.
Get out of here! Get out of here! Take your optimism. Get the fuck out of here! No, but it's true though, and I'm actually feeling it. And this is one of the things I said. I found myself, it's a recurring thing. But there was all this big Ange ball and boom, 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 and I wasn't feeling it at all.
I wasn't at all.
I couldn't feel it. I was like the guy in the hospital ward, you know, wrapped up like a mummy. And it's, how are you today, Mr. Jenkins? I'm not feeling it. And that's how I felt watching Ange, because quite straightforwardly, the football wasn't exciting to watch.
Even when we won those first 10 games of the season, you mean?
The first 10 games, that gave me a flicker of hope, because I'd sat through, and I am going to name names because that's the way I operate, Gold My Beer and all of these cretins. And it's great to hear that Dan Kilpatrick, he's left the building. He's left the building, so the Evening Standard go back to being a reliable spot for Spurs coverage. But he's now an editor at The Athletic, which we take very seriously. So it's like being made a curator at the Tutankhamun exhibition. Good luck with that. But no, so yeah, I was able to understand what the Ange ball thing was about, because he was clearly playing, and I've said this numerous times, it was like five-a-side football on a very big scale. So the ball very rarely went above your shoulder, lots of short passes, very few long passes, very few headed goals. The crosses weren't particularly important because that's not where it came from.
Yeah.
And all the energy outside the penalty area was on the sort of left, right and centre. And it was, I'm not going to say predictable in a bad way, it was predictable in a good way on occasion. But it was interesting to note, and we have to bring it back to him because he's the main man now, that Thomas Frank saw through it. He was one of the pioneers of seeing through it.
Yeah.
And then all those other people from Chelsea onwards saw through it.
Yeah. And we had no response.
No, which is why we finished 17th. And I know it's tedious for people to hear this who don't want to hear it, but stick your fingers in your ears. We finished 17th because he had no plan B.
No.
And they were talking about the Europa League as if he was playing a different kind of football.
No, it was horrible. Turgid Tottenham, that's what I always called them.
No. It's even more simple than that. Everybody we played in the Champions League, we only won 10 games. We didn't win 15. We only won 10 games. Everybody we played, bar the last two, was 6, 7, 8, 9 to 1. That's the reality of it. Yeah. So if we could have played anybody apart from Southampton, so if we could have played Ipswich, and who was the other side that went down? Leicester. If we could have played Ipswich and Leicester every week, we could have won the league and done the double.
In Levy Land.
Yeah. In Levy Land, TM.
Oh my word.
Levy World's TM. So, Champions League, your reaction to that is that, which I think is a fair comment because I agree with you.
What's the new format? How many games do we get?
Some.
So let's just use it as a learning experience. If we, if we do win some, it's because it's not the group format. It's not as
correct.
Quick as we've lost the first 3 games, we're out. We've got opportunity there to improve over.
What I would like to see is Thomas Frank's system exhibit itself, because just as we all gave Ange credit for his first 10 games, which were good, they weren't awful. They then became awful.
Some of them were. Yeah.
Well, some of them were, but we're brushing things up.
Celebrating 100 wins.
Well, we don't want to declare war on the entirety of Australasia, which is
we do. We don't need them.
Go back to work, mate.
That's why we sent them there in the first place.
Do you know that I made that as a casual remark to somebody the other day, and they said you mustn't use it on your podcast.
Okay.
No apologies. But I think within all of us, there's something that happened in the past that we carry with us. Some of it's positive, some of it's negative, and being shipped off for stealing a bun is something you need to talk to your great-great-great-great-grandmother about, personally.
Yeah, and then pay reparations to the bakery.
Yeah, exactly. Get the reparations out for the lads. So the Premier League.
Yes.
Because you know what I'm doing? I'm looking at the clock and seeing we're coming to the hour mark.
Okay.
So the Premier League, what do you think? Because I know he will have, like, Peter Sellers' inflatable parrot. Oh, the English reader. He will be hearing his voice.
Yeah.
You do understand why we got rid of the last guy, don't you?
Well, I thought that was what was disgusting about what he released in his little love-in with Vinay yesterday, because he's basically saying, oh, yeah, we need to win the Premier League and we should be winning the Champions League. And like, on what planet would you say that after you've hired someone, you haven't invested any money in the team for them other than Tel, and you say you have no money to invest, and now you're saying, well, yeah, you've got to use the same squad pretty much that we had last year and finish 17th to win the Premier League with. I
have to take issue with you, because I actually think what was infinitely stupider, more stupid than that, was the fact that his new best friend said that they had 30 candidates. 30.
I missed that bit. Okay.
It's in there.
Candidates.
7-minute tape, and people have missed loads of stuff. Trust me.
Oh my God.
So he said 30 candidates, and I made a point on the subset this morning. I said this is like me saying that I've decided to marry Mabel, Fat Mabel from the Bakers.
Yeah.
But there were 29 other women who didn't get my ring on her finger, and they included international supermodels. You see, those are the voices in my head talking and making stuff up.
Yeah.
Whereas Mabel from the Bakers was, in actual fact, the only woman who'd stand in the same room with me without calling the police. So the idea that I managed to marry Mabel is, who am I trying to kid? So yeah, that was the big one. I mean, the funniest bit, arguably, was the you know more about red wine.
Yeah.
Dear God, yeah, no, fuck all about running a football club, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So Premier League, where do you think we're going to go?
He consistently did 9th to 12th with Brentford. I wouldn't be unhappy with that for a couple of seasons if that's what, if we're building. If
he's building and he's showing us he's building, you see, what I don't want is building, but you're actually talking to me about, I mean, we've both been there with women being pregnant for 9 months. God knows you celebrate with the child comes out, but I don't want to hear all the moaning and groaning forever. You need to have an end point, because
I'm sick to death of projects.
Yeah, so, Project Smodgect,
Yeah, I think 9th to 12th would be kind of that's kind of the low bar, really, for the players that we have.
I think that's incredibly realistic, and I think it'll give us more entertainment with the Australians waking up every morning going, "Yeah, I told you it was shit, mate." Yeah, but we haven't been relegated, and we're actually enjoying our football again.
And that's the important thing. You want the crowd to be actually enjoying football. I mean,
especially like some of the poor bastards that I know are shelling out thousands of pounds.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, and spending 6 hours a day commuting on a day of rest, in order to watch stuff, which is frankly,
I gave up. I gave up at the end of last season. Yeah, I just couldn't be bothered.
I gave up throughout so many games. It's very easy for me to say that because I was sat at home watching on TV. My day of flying from other countries into watching Spurs are well behind me. Mm. You have families, you have other commitments, you're on the run from the police, there's all these things, and to me, I've put my shift in, thanks very much. Yeah. And I was fortunate to put it in under a manager who knew what he was doing, opposed to just won a competition on a cruise liner. Well, I think we're just about done.
Yeah.
So we're happy with the appointment of Thomas Frank.
Yep.
We're relying on him a lot, but only not because we want to be in a happy place, but because we want him to repeat what he's done in the past. Is that fair?
And
fair
I think he's more than capable, and he has a backroom staff that can help him achieve that as well.
We are absolutely
loving it.
Cheers, Chris.
All right.
Speak to you soon.
See ya.